What's going on, guys? Daric here from DaricBennett.com. We're back at it again. We're continuing the series of the modes. All right, if you haven't seen it by now, part 1 and part 2 have been released. If you haven't been caught up yet on that, I suggest you go look at that first, study those modes that I went over so you can be caught up and so you can follow along with us. So don't want to waste any more time. Like I said, this is going to be broken up into several different sections. That's why I'm calling it the series. All right, so the modes has a lot of information to intake, but it's actually a very simple process. All right, once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty simple, believe it or not. All right, here we go. I'm going to start with Ionian and Dorian. All right, I'm just going to focus on those two for right now. It's a lot of information, like I said, it's a lot of information in these modes, but once you get the process down, like I said, it's going to be pretty simple. All right, so make sure you're putting a number next to the mode. All right, always remember Ionian is 1. Okay, always remember Dorian is 2. All right, always remember Phrygian is 3, and so forth. All right, just put that number with the mode. Just keep going up to 7. 7 would be the Locrian mode. All right, so we want to make sure we have that in our brain. Ionian simply means the first mode. Ionian simply means the major scale. All right, whatever key you're starting in. So say we did the modes in C major. Okay, so whatever key you're starting in, that is the Ionian mode. That is the first mode, the first scale, number 1. All right, let's talk about scale degrees. All right, same thing for scale degrees. We have 1 being our first note, 2, that's the next scale degree, 3, that's the next scale degree, 4, that's the next scale degree. All right, you get it. 5, 6, 7, back to 1, or you can call that the octave. All right, so it's very simple. Don't overthink it. Ionian is the major scale, the first scale of the modes. All right, so C major, and by now we should all learn or all know the C major scale. All right, whatever position we want to do it in, that's our Ionian. So what I like to do is I like to start right there. I like to start right on the Ionian. I like to stay right there and focus on that for a minute. Make sure I know the scale up and down the fretboard. All right, make sure I know different arpeggios or different chords or anything like that, just based around the Ionian mode. All right, so basically just using the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. All right, but make sure I'm starting on C. So that's where our mode comes from. All right, that's going to be our root note for that mode. All right, make sure I can play it up and down the scale. I can play it in a 2-octave scale, or I can play an arpeggio. I can play a major 7 arpeggio. And also, if you haven't watched the arpeggio exercise or the arpeggio lesson video, if you want to go brush up on your arpeggios, go take a look at that video. But it's just basically the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th note of the major scale. All right, you can play an arpeggio, you can play a triad, which is the first 3 notes. All right, all these terms and names, don't get them confused, because the difference between a triad and an arpeggio is 1 note. All right, that major 7 arpeggio and a triad, the difference is 1 note. All right, so don't let it confuse you. Anyway, we have those tools that we can use. All right, so if we're playing and focusing on the key of C or the Ionian mode, all right, we need to know as many things as possible, all right, to be able to move fluently and comfortably around the bass. In the next few lessons coming up, I'm going to show you how to use them inside of a song. All right, but I want to go over each mode. You want to spend some time with each mode. Okay, you want to make sure you can play each mode fluently around the fretboard. Okay, and really internalize that sound. All right, you have that major sound now, dude. To get full access to the rest of this lesson, you want to head over to DaricBennett.com if you're not already there to start your free trial today. All right, you won't regret it. We got new advanced lessons coming up every single week for our members. We even have an interactive forum where you can ask anything you want. I'll be able to answer any questions you have and just interact with all types of bass players around the world. All right, so go start your free trial. Until next time,